I'm Mark Cacenski. I'm currently a servant leader here at the Valley Rescue Mission. I walked through those doors right back there, November 1st, 2022. I come here from Dallas, Georgia, where I lived homeless for about 12 to 14 years. I lived in streets, in the woods, in dirty old cars, and just to try to stay out of prison and jails and institutions, and I wasn't very good in society. I've been in prison for several different times, mainly assaults, because all my brothers and sisters were all hippies. They were all pretty mellow people. I was just the only one that, couldn't learn nothing, couldn't read, couldn't write, until I was 19 years old. At my home, my daddy was a drunk, a mean drunk. I was just, I wasn't like them. They knew it, I knew it, and my mama knew it. They had me on Ritalin and Valium at a very young age, getting brain scans, put me in several different schools, put me on home tutoring. I was violent in all of them, and then they just started putting me in shelters for boys. So I didn't respect. I was fighting grown men when I was 11, 12 years old. I didn't have no respect for authority whatsoever. It was a crazy world I lived in. It really was. I didn't really look at it until I got a little older. A lot of deep scars. Scars that no counseling could take away. Nothing could take it away except the good Lord himself. God. Is the only one that was able to help me sort that out. Only through him that I was able to understand who he wanted me to be and what he had for me. And I make that very clear, and I didn't know that until I got here. Drugs, alcohol, and violence. And it landed me in, that's all I knew, and it landed me in prison. Prison after prison, and then jail after jail, and just, and the only way I found out how to deal with that was just stay away from society. So I went on the homeless route, and just stayed away from everybody. It was lonely, shallow, cold, cold, not like physical cold, but just cold, you're in the woods and you're staying away from people, and your brain starts playing tricks on you, you know what I mean? And then I found what I call my family. I found a little dog, half dead, by the dumpsters, and me and her went through about 12 years living together. She was, I get choked up every time I think about Cleo, but, it was me and her for a long time, in the woods. And I'm sorry, man, but I really get choked up about that dog, because she got me through a lot. I got her through a lot, and she got me through a lot. Didn't have a teacher, none. She was a good dog. It was just me and her building fires and, going into town and hitting the thrift store dumpsters to getting clothes and stuff, and helping hand places to get a little food once in a while, and then go back in the woods. And it was working, it was working. I went to go get scraps at the Hickory Hut one night, and the fella offered me a job cleaning the smokers and the meat, and the store was closed, and I did that for about a year, and it was working out good for me and the dog, It happened to be, I started making friends with the owner, and this is the one that gave me a job, but he did drugs, a lot of drugs. He asked me to hide this bag he had 8.5 months later, and 2 months after he had died, I found out he signed a statement on me because I had an FTA, failure to appear. I waited 5.5 months to go to court, and I went to court, and this is what they told me, and I said, well, he said, no, we're going to give you 10 years, you're going to do 5. Well, they gave me the option to either go to prison or find myself a program. You know, trying to figure things out, feeling sorry for myself, because now I'm starting to think about things like, you know, I haven't accomplished nothing in this life. So I'm feeling that pity kind of feeling, you know, and kind of crying a little bit, you know, sniffling. And I don't know how to do anything. I never finished anything in my life that meant anything to me. I don't even know who I am. And I really didn't know who I was, you know. And I still don't know fully who I am, but I know God's got a purpose for me. When I arrived here, it was about 9:30 at night. It was raining still, and and I got off the bus, and I said, I asked one of the guys, "Where's the Valley Rescue?" And she goes, "What's that?" You know, I guess that's how far I was, you know. I said, all right. I just started walking. I had this, my clothes, and, you know, 8.5 miles from that bus stop, the Greyhound bus stop. I finally made it here. I'm coming up here, and they said, just look for the little white church. I seen that little white church. I said, I'm there. I got this. You know, I got it. I made it, you know. Man, I felt like a different person, you know. I really did. It felt so good. And then I laid in the bed, you know, and I fell asleep. And I didn't, you know, it felt so good to sleep on the bed. You know, because when you're sleeping in the back of a car or on, you know, on the ground out in the woods for years like that, when you get something like that, you really, that anger, everything I had inside me that I'm asking God to remove. And I didn't want to screw it up because this is my last, this is my last stand, you know. So when they woke me up the next morning, I didn't even want to get out of bed. Believe me, I'm sure I didn't want to get dirty those fluffy socks. You know, I didn't want to put them boots back on. About my 4th day, I had to go and get the kitchen towels over here. And I went through there, and I see this woman cleaning tables and mopping floors and just moving around all by herself. And something said, ask her if she wanted some help. Started talking about Jesus. And we talked about Jesus all day that day, and I liked it. Didn't know why I liked it. I had no idea why I liked it. When we just started talking about God, you know, I was feeling better. And I followed her around for 3.5 months. And she told me for 9.5 months, my whole, down here, up there, graduate. Till the day I graduated, Mark, you need to learn patience and obedience and read Psalms 23. Now let me tell you a story how I really met her though. It was with these 3 fingers. Okay, I lost these 3 fingers to frostbite. The first one I pulled off myself. And then the second year I came back because now my bone marrow was susceptible to the cold. And it stunk and it was painful. And I got tired of it, so we pulled it off with a pair of channel locks. Then the next year, all my fingertips started turning black. Again, in the cold. But when I got to Kennesaw Hospital, something happened to me there. God happened. I didn't even know I had God in my life because I was still in my addiction. I got in there and they removed them fingers and I met the most incredible people in my life. They were so kind, so generous. They went beyond the meaning of being nice. They were being godly, but I didn't know it. This is 3.5 years prior to me getting here. But what that did, it removed every bit of my prejudice that I had in my life that was going to keep me from this woman, because she was from a different color of me. God was changing me 3.5 years prior from me getting here so I can walk through that cafeteria and ask her if she needed help so I can receive him. And I believe that in my full heart. And I didn't realize that until I got up to Crossroads, the second stage of this program. I finally come to terms like that was all God, you know? and I'm so grateful for what he's done, at that time in my life. And I mean, you've seen that picture, that's me. That's 50 years, from 7 years old to 57. That's what the devil had. That's what he played with, and when I walk through them doors, God has, and this is, I just, I know everybody says it sometimes, but I wish I could have got this earlier. No, I got this right when God wanted me to have it. In my heart, I believe the day I asked him to forgive me for what I was about to do, and he heard me cry out to him to show me every bit of, what I have to do, and to give me an identity, to know at least who I am, or whatever he's got left for me. He forgave me for every sin I ever done. I could think of all the things I've done in my life. I know how I lived and where I come from, and what each step, I can go through it all. The journey of the rehabs and whatnot. I tried everything to try to do it my way. I gave my will to God. That's when it changed. He's the only one that could have fixed me, because I couldn't fix me. I tried for 50 years. My main thing is it's about God. It's all God. There's nothing else in my heart that believes that this is all God. And I just hope that someone hears it and is as desperate as I was, and lost and empty, a shell of a person, to hear it and know that there's hope. There's hope and there's help, and there's people that want to help. Truly, if I don't know you, if you listen to me talk, I love you. God loves you. I really do. I love you. I don't know you, but I love you. With my heart, because that's what Jesus did to me.